We have all kinds of NHL news and rumors to take a look at this evening, and we have a big return for Val Nichushkin in Colorado. Steven Stamkos has had a big milestone as well, plus news from the NHL waiver wire, a signing in Vegas, and lots of trade talk around the league. Things are starting to pick up. Could we see a big trade between Montreal and Columbus? We'll discuss how that might work, plus we have the latest on Trevor Zegras, the Boston Bruins, as well as Marcus Pettersson drawing a lot of interest from some Western Canadian clubs as well. Plus, could Jordan Binnington eventually get moved by the St. Louis Blues after a rough start to the Blues season? We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about tonight. It's been a very busy day. Let's start first with a couple quick updates. One from the waiver wire. The Avalanche had Chris Wagner on waivers yesterday. He has cleared and has been reassigned, so nothing earth-shattering there. And we have nothing new from the waiver wire here today. A big signing in Vegas regarding defenseman Brayden McNabb. McNabb has signed a 3-year contract extension with the Golden Knights. He was a pending unrestricted free agent. Would have drawn decent interest, I think, on the open market. Of course, he's been with Vegas since they began. He was one of their original misfits, they called themselves there. He is signed for 3 years at $3.7 million. He's a pretty, solid defensive style defenseman. Doesn't have a whole lot of speed. He's probably one of the slower players across the NHL, but he is very defensively sound. He's very smart with his positioning and certainly knows how to block shots, playing a PK and things like that. So he's certainly knows his role and plays within his value. So I think the money, you could argue, is probably, kind of borderline to me. He obviously can play, between second and third pair, but long term, I honestly am a little surprised. As much as I know they like McNabb there, but certainly you've got, Theodore got locked up earlier. You get Pietrangelo, still has some term on his contract. Noah Hannafin signed long term there as well. You still got, Hag, Whitecloud, obviously McNabb. Certainly the way McNabb is paid is you would be more likely to be a second pair D instead of a third pair. Third pair D typically only make, maybe $1 million, $1.5 million, like something along those lines. So decent signing. I know he's a big part of the team there. I thought maybe they might move on. We've seen him make really tough decisions with other players that were super important, like Jonathan Marchessault, Marc-Andre Fleury, a few years back. And there's been others, Max Pacioretty when he was there. They made some really tough, shrewd business decisions, and I thought McNabb might be the next one, but not so much. With all the other D they've signed, I thought maybe he would, have to be sacrificed, but that is not the case. He's going to be in Vegas. Likely, I would assume this probably takes him to the remainder of his career. Now, lots of updates as well on injuries. The Minnesota Wild have had a bad string here. The other night they lost Zuccarello, and I think Eriksson got hurt as well. But Zuccarello required surgery for his injury, and he's going to be out for about a month. So obviously that's not good. He plays a very vital role in their top six. In Ottawa, they finally got news that David Perron is officially back. He has been practicing with the team, but it wasn't clear what his status was going to be because he was on a personal leave. In case you don't know, David Perron and his wife were expecting a new baby, and I believe it was in August when they ran into some complications with the pregnancy, and obviously they spent all the training camp basically living out of a hotel. They were going through the Toronto Sick Kids Hospital, even though he's playing in Ottawa, obviously because of the complications and the the level of care they needed to go to Toronto for that, and it was it was tough on him. So he's in training camp, his wife's in Toronto. He's going back and forth. They knew that their baby was going to be born with complications, require a big surgery, and they're not completely out of the woods, according to David Perron, but their daughter, Elizabeth, has been born. They've gone through some stuff, and they didn't give a ton of details, but the fact is that they've gone through a lot. A lot of it's been fairly positive to the point that he's able to come back. He is going to be going with the Sens. Actually, they would have already left because they play in Carolina tomorrow. It is possible he will suit up. So he's officially back with the club now. Things are in a good enough place family-wise that he's able to do that. They're not out of the woods. There's still things to be done, but at least he's able to kind of balance that out a little bit better now for the time being. So David Perron will be a welcome addition back into the Sens lineup. They've played well as of late, but when you have a veteran like that, you can put back in the mix, especially after an overtime loss to the Flyers the other night. That would be welcome, I would think. In Pittsburgh, they've recalled Owen Pickering, so he should be able to get into the lineup here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Blake Lizotte was going on IR as well. In Carolina, a couple of different notes. One, they are going to be without Seth Jarvis for a little while. Seth Jarvis is injured. Freddie Anderson was originally listed as week to week, and I don't know, they haven't really clarified what's going on with him. I hope it's not the blood clot issue that he was dealing with before. It's kept him out a long stretch last year. All Rod Brindamore said was that Freddie was going to be out a lot longer than week to week. So it's going to be a long-term issue here. I believe Kochetkov was dealing with something as well. They'd have called up a goalie from the minors. So certainly not the kind of news you want to hear. So I'm not really sure the exact, like I said, prognosis here on Freddie, but it just sounds like it's fairly serious and he's going to be out for an extended time. I don't think Jarvis is going to be out too long, but will be out for a little bit. In Toronto, they're still being cautious with Matthews. Earlier this week, he missed a couple of games, including the game against the Senators, and they said he was likely returning on the weekend against the Oilers and Connor McDavid. Now, that's not the case. He's going to be out a bit longer than that again. So whatever it is, they're being very, very cautious here with Matthews, and they want to make sure it's not re-aggravated and fully healed up. The Buffalo Sabres have recalled Yuri Kulich, so he's up. Tage Thompson is going to be out for a little bit. He's officially on injured reserve. To go on IR, you do have to miss a minimum of 7 days. Of course, that can be retroactively placed to the date the injury took place, so it may not be too long, but Thompson's likely going to miss, I would think, at least a couple of games based on their schedule here. A bunch of notes under the Anaheim Ducks organization. Robbie Fabry is going to be out again. Needed another knee surgery. This kid, he's not really a kid anymore, but I know he's had so many knee issues over the years. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. I believe it was a meniscus type of surgery that he needed. So, again, he's had, I think, like 3 or 4 major knee surgeries. This one's not as major as some of the other ones he's had in the past, but still, that's going to keep him out of the lineup for a couple of months. So, you're likely looking at, late January return, most likely, maybe early February. We'll have to wait and see. Cam Fowler's going to be out for at least 2 weeks, maybe upwards of a month, dealing with an upper body injury. We know he's already been out for a little bit here. It didn't sound as serious in the beginning, and it's obviously worse than what they originally thought. Mason McTavish is out day to day. Urho Vakanainen also injured, dealing with an upper body injury. We don't have a timeline on him just yet because it's a newer injury that he's still being evaluated for. Of course, tonight the Avalanche are in action, and for the first time in a long time, they have Big Val Nichushkin in the lineup. Nichushkin, of course, has gone through a lot personally off the ice, going through the player assistance program. Obviously, ended up with a 6-month suspension after some recurring issues, and certainly hope that everything is, good with him personally on and off the ice, and I certainly hope that he can, remain, within what he needs to do to not end up back in that program again, and obviously to help the Avalanche. Their record when he's in the lineup in the last number of years is phenomenal. So he is a huge part of that team, and having him back, if he can be back productive and healthy, and, obviously not have anything come up to keep him out of the playoffs this year would be massive for the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I've seen a variety of NHL trade rumors today that I want to take a peek at here today. One regarding St. Louis Blues goaltender Jordan Binnington. Now, there's no rumors right now suggesting that Doug Armstrong and the Blues are out there shopping Binnington or anything of that nature. However, the articles and the information that we came across today suggest that, there's a lot of people that are starting to get the growing sentiment that Jordan Binnington is a very competitive person, obviously Stanley Cup champion. The Blues are in a situation where they're really not having a good start to the season. This team is not anywhere near as good, I think, as they might have hoped. And they wonder if a player like Binnington, who doesn't have a ton of term left and is a well-priced goaltender, considering how the goalie market has exploded with higher salaries. We know there's a lot of teams out there that are going to be looking. There's at least a few that come to mind looking for goaltending upgrades before the trade deadline. And Binnington is a player that they're starting to wonder if he would go to the Blues and say, why don't you move me? They have Joel Hofer there, who's obviously been, waiting in the wings here. He's a good soldier, playing his role, waiting for an opportunity to run with the ball there longer. But obviously Binnington, like I said, super competitive guy, does not want to give up the crease, I'm sure. But, the belief generally amongst St. Louis media is that they wonder if he's going to get to that point to want to move on and have a chance to be in a more competitive situation. Certainly, like I said, he has a little bit of term left on his contract, but he's looking at his stats really ever since he's won the Stanley Cup. They might not be the most flattering year after year, but he's been a really good goaltender for a long stretch. He's going to be in the mix for Team Canada in the Four Nation Face-Off, possibly the Olympics next year. You have to think that there's definitely a lot of teams out there where he would be an upgrade. So again, looking at his situation, there's no rumor suggesting that he's being shopped or that there's trade conversations going on. The belief is, and the wondering is it going to get to the point soon where he's going to be asking them to do that and to find a more competitive situation where he can be getting hopefully back in the playoffs and have a shot at another Stanley Cup. So we'll have to follow that situation, especially like I said, where Joel Hofer's in the mix there as well. Of course, the Penguins are a team we're highly monitoring. Another loss today, this time a bad one against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Again, a team that they probably should beat, but again, the Penguins, that's how things are right now in Pittsburgh, is that even a team like Columbus, who we know works hard, but doesn't have nearly the skill level of some of the higher end teams, but they can make you pay if you're not up to snuff or you're not having a good day or what have you. It's no different than the Philadelphia Flyers. They've been giving teams fits and coming back in the third period. They did it the other night to the Senators. Senators had a 4-2 lead in the third period. Looked like it was going to be a sure win with 8, 9, 10 minutes left in the game, and all of a sudden they you take your foot off the gas or you give them a little something and bam, 2 quick ones just like that. 4-4 goes to overtime, and then Mitchkov scores a kind of a fluky seeing eye shot on Allmark, and just like that you give away a point. It's no different than what we're seeing Pittsburgh do, except they're giving away 2 points more often than not. And Columbus and Philadelphia, they're hardworking teams. You can't take them for granted, and they will make you pay. They do have enough NHL quality talent to do that, even when you might not think they can. So the Penguins are a hurting unit here. They are a team that, a lot of people right now are kind of licking their chops. I think looking at some of these talented players and wondering, I wonder if they will make a move here. I mean, obviously the one name that comes to mind that we're looking at today is Marcus Pettersson, who we know in the beginning of the preseason, after Crosby signed, everybody was saying, watch Pettersson, he's going to be the next one that Dubas locks up. And then Dubas decided, you know what? I want to see how things go here a little bit before I make that move. And it's nothing about Pettersson. It's not that he doesn't like Marcus Pettersson or that they don't think he's a good defenseman anymore, and nothing like that. They just they don't want another longer term, contract locked up to make things more complicated if things are not going to go well. And they have not gone well. So in all, it's probably a good move on Dubas' part that he did not continue on with those negotiations and get something done. Pettersson is drawing a heavy interest from a couple of Western teams, more specifically Edmonton and Vancouver. Now, the Oilers also do have there's rumors that they're looking at other D out there as well. I know David Savard in Montreal keeps coming up as a potential target, which, is a right shot guy who can block shots and play your PK. Might be the better fit, but Pettersson might fit the bill as well. And in Vancouver, like I said, obviously the strong connection there. The former Penguins brass that are running the Canucks obviously know this player quite well between Alvin and Rutherford. So, Pettersson is going to be, as we see other defensemen get locked up, like Gavrikov is rumored to be staying in Los Angeles. McNabb, for example, in Vegas to sign. So there's not going to be, at least it doesn't look that way right now, that there's going to be a very deep D market for rentals at the trade deadline. Marcus Pettersson, because of that, might draw more value than he otherwise would. So I don't know that it's a deal that Kyle Dubas is going to rush out to do, but at this point, all signs indicate that Pettersson is much more likely to get traded than to be signed by the Penguins, given how poor their season has gone and the fact that they need change. And like I said, right now, all signs point to Western Canada, but there will be other teams jumping in the mix for sure because he's a coveted type of defenseman with what's out there. Now, of course, we know in Boston, again, the Bruins are a team that are highly being monitored by a lot of people like the Penguins, wondering when's the shoe going to drop, or when are we going to see a big change? Are we going to see a situation where, I know a lot of people wondered about a Friday, like a late Friday news dump. Are they going to fire Montgomery? Are they going to pull off a trade? They're going to shake things up. If they do make a trade, as we've said before, look for it to be possibly for a middle six center would be the most likely target that they would go after, but it's not going to be trading a player that's a core player. All their core players outside of Captain Brad Marchand are mostly locked up on longer-term deals. I mean, look at Zadorov and Lindholm just signed new long-term contracts. You've got Pasternak locked up, McAvoy's locked up. Their other D, Hampus Lindholm, Brandon Carlo. You just signed Swayman to a longer-term deal. All these guys, they're not going to be going anywhere. It's like they have massive amounts of money and term on their deals. So it's going to be kind of like, your depth players. You're kind of tweaking around the edges, so to speak. But a name that has come up that might be available would add some skill to the middle of the Bruins lineup is Trevor Zegras in Anaheim. Now, there's been some reports. I know Chris Johnston, who's well-connected, works with TSN and The Athletic, was talking on his podcast the other day saying he doesn't know that the Anaheim Ducks are really right now in a firm market to move Zegras. There was tons of rumors around Zegras for quite a long time, and there was Zegras, in the offseason, there was heavy discussions around the Montreal Canadiens, and that has proven to be, we've heard it from enough reliable sources that I firmly believe there was lots of talks, but nothing materialized. Montreal would not give Pat Verbeek and the Ducks what they were looking for, so it never ended up going down. However, according to CJ, he's wondering if the Ducks maybe are kind of, shying away from trading Zegras right now. His numbers are not good offensively, but it doesn't mean that he's playing horribly. I know they seem to be pleased with the fact that he's got more of a commitment to team defense. He's not playing the same style. They wanted him to make some adjustments. And I think the fact that he's focusing a lot more on that side of the game is probably why his offensive stats are not where they usually have been. He's not, producing a whole lot. So, in all honesty, CJ says that they're kind of, somewhat happier with his game, and maybe the trade talks have cooled down. But, sometimes, too, they have information that kind of gets leaked out to insiders thinking there's not as much interest out there because maybe they're not getting the interest that they were hoping for, right? So, again, it's hard to say. At some point, though, I still think that the odds are more favorable for him to be moved than not. But CJ said when his trade bait board comes out that he may not be near the top. He's probably going to be either not on it or near the bottom of a less likely player. So we'll see. But I've seen some information suggesting that the Bruins might be a team to target. The only problem here is it's going to be a high asking price. He's a high pick player from not that long ago, has a lot of skill. Obviously the Ducks haven't moved him yet because of the asking price. I don't know that the Bruins can really meet their demands. So, in all honesty, unless the price comes way down, and I don't expect that to happen because, they're not going to sell super low, I'm not sure that it's going to work out. But I know I've seen that connection. It makes some sense, but not completely sold that the Bruins can get it done. And then lastly here, Montreal and Columbus. I've seen some reports suggesting that, obviously, Elliot Friedman talked a bit recently on a couple of occasions about David Jiricek and Columbus, suggesting that with the recent acquisition of another right-hand defenseman on that team, that he kind of wonders how this affects Jiricek and wonders how patient the player is going to be. There was already some, iffy parts of the relationship last year, some I wouldn't call it drama, but there was certainly some, upset feelings on his side with the lack of opportunity he had been given. The fact that they've had a change in GM, which means that GM is not going to be as attached to a player that he didn't draft as somebody who did. So he kind of wonders, with Jiricek's future, is it possible that maybe it's not going to be in Columbus? And obviously, we know that the Jackets could certainly, if they do move a player like Jiricek, they could use another top line, top six forward. And Kirby Dach's name has been mentioned as a potential trade. Now, this is more of a what-if scenario. I don't know that there's really any linkage right now suggesting that these teams have actually had trade talks, but we know that there's been a lot of rumblings in the Montreal media that they probably, if they're going to make a move, because Montreal's struggling, when teams struggle, they get lots of attention about what changes are going to come, and Kirby Dach's name has been front and center quite a bit. I think it's fair to say that he's not kind of producing to the level that they'd hoped for. Things haven't worked out. I mean, they wanted him originally to be a center. They've been playing him on the wing. It doesn't seem like it's just not working. Plain and simple. And we've also heard rumblings that the Montreal Canadiens would love to get another right-hand defenseman. Now, Jiricek, yes, he's still fairly young, fairly unestablished, unproven, but is a little bit older and probably a little bit more further along to being an NHL defenseman than some of their other prospects, like a Reinbacher or Mailloux, and really add another young defenseman into your mix. If you can make that happen, it's not a horrible thing to do. If you end up with way too many defensemen that can play top NHL minutes down the road, it gives you lots of trade options as well. So it's not the end of the world. But, we've heard about Jerard for the last couple of weeks being out there. Friedman's mentioned it as well. And like I said, with the links of Montreal looking for that kind of player, a lot of rumblings about Doc not working out. A lot of people have tried to connect the dots here and suggest that these two teams would actually make great trade partners. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Would you make that deal if you're Montreal or Columbus? In the comments, we'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.